Welcome to Shadowed Tales Archive, a place where forgotten stories breathe again, where whispers crawl from the cracks of reality, and fear finds a voice. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and listen closely, because some tales were never meant to be told. Tonight's story is titled Dead Air, The Signal Beneath. Let the shadows speak.
Part 1. A shortcut to nowhere. It was past midnight when Lena and I finally made it out of the festival grounds. The dust from the parking lot still clung to my shoes as we walked to the car, our legs stiff from 3 days of dancing, bad sleep, and overpriced beer. The annual Pulsefield Music Festival in Bay Hollow, Wisconsin, had wrapped, and like every year, the exit was chaos. Thousands of tired, sunburned people trying to funnel through 2 narrow dirt roads. I glanced at my phone for GPS. Dead. No service. I showed it to Lena with a half smile. Tradition continues. She rolled her eyes. Every year. You'd think this place would upgrade their cell towers. We weren't worried though. This was our 5th Pulsefield. We'd memorized the route back to Milwaukee by now. Lena slid into the passenger seat with a sigh, resting her forehead on the dashboard for dramatic effect. "You're not gonna fall asleep on me, are you?" I asked. She mumbled something about owing me a nap and shut her eyes. The main road out of town was backed up. Sirens glowed faintly ahead. A cop car was parked sideways across both lanes, lights flashing. A uniformed officer waved vehicles into a detour, his face drawn and tired. I rolled down the window as we crawled forward. "Road's closed," he said. "Serious accident. Try Birch Hollow Road, cuts east toward County Route 9. I nodded. "Thanks." I turned onto the gravel side road, headlights sweeping over trees that looked like they'd been planted by ghosts. There weren't any street lights. The further we drove, the darker it got. I flipped the high beams on. The trees narrowed around us. "I hate roads like this," Lena murmured. I smirked. "Come on. This is horror movie gold. Don't start." "Don't start what?" I said, turning the radio dial to AM with exaggerated slowness. "Let's find something spooky." She groaned. "I swear, Carter, if you find some creepy station with chanting monks or..." White noise. A crackle, then silence. Another station. Static, then a brief warble of old music, warping like a tape eaten by heat. And then, AM 630. At first it sounded like a lullaby. Twinkling, high-pitched, slow just enough to be wrong. A child's voice joined in, whisper singing in a language I didn't recognize. It felt like the sound was brushing the back of my neck. I grinned at Lena. "Bingo." She didn't smile. "Turn it off." "Come on, it's just a station." "Carter, turn it off." I killed the radio. She stared out the window, her arms crossed. I could tell she was shaken, and I was about to apologize when my phone buzzed in the center console. No signal, but it was ringing. Unknown number. I glanced at Lena, then answered. There was breathing on the other end. Slow, steady. Then in the background, a faint sound, music. That same warped lullaby from the radio. I pulled the phone from my ear, stared at the screen again, then hung up. Lena whispered, "Was it?" "Probably just a prank," I said, trying to sound casual. "Someone rebroadcasting the station's audio. You can do that with an app. Pirate radio crap." But inside, something twisted. The second call came in. Another unknown number. Area code 414. Milwaukee. This time I didn't answer, just watched it ring. A third call, then a fourth. No caller ID now, just unknown. Lena reached over and killed the volume. "Don't answer anymore," she said. "Seriously, I won't." but I was already watching the woods outside like something might step out. Up ahead, a set of headlights appeared behind us. Bright, too bright. The car behind us swerved closer than it should have, then backed off. Then flashed its brights. Once, twice. What the hell? I muttered. The vehicle sped up and started tailgating. Lena sat forward. Let them pass. I would, but I gestured ahead. The road was barely wide enough for 2 cars, no shoulder. Just trees and ditch. The car behind us flashed its brights again. Then my phone buzzed. A new voicemail. From the number with the 414 area code. I didn't listen. Not yet. The vehicle behind us swerved into the oncoming lane. I could see its front now, an old rust-colored SUV. The headlights were fogged. The bumper hung crooked. It didn't pass. It pulled up beside us, window to window. I glanced over. The glass was blacked out, not tinted, covered, like someone had painted it from the inside. Lena grabbed my arm, and then I heard it. A faint sound coming from inside our car. Not the engine, not the tires. It was the lullaby, playing again. But the radio was off. My phone buzzed violently. A new call. No name, no number. Just a single character on screen. Infinity. I didn't touch it. The SUV began to swerve closer, like it was trying to push us off the road. I jerked the wheel right, tires skidding on gravel. We hit a bump and Lena screamed. I caught the wheel and yanked us back just in time. The SUV sped up, then turned off onto a side road without brake lights. Gone. Like it had melted into the trees. Silence. Lena was shaking. I pulled the car to a stop at a gas station 10 minutes later. Abandoned. The lights were off. But it was the first break in the trees I'd seen, and I needed to breathe. Lena got out of the car. I followed, trying to calm my hands. She lit a cigarette. She hadn't smoked in 2 years. "Carter," she whispered, "what the hell is happening?" I didn't answer. I played the voicemail. It was just music, but layered beneath the lullaby was my voice, saying a sentence I hadn't spoken yet. Part 2, Echoes and Static. We didn't talk much after that voicemail. I think we were both trying to find a version of reality where it could all be explained. A glitch, a prank, a recording, something human, something small. But it didn't feel small. It felt like something was watching us from just behind the curtain of the world, its fingers already curled around the edges. We found a motel just past 2 a.m., a tired, sagging thing called Hollow Pines Inn with flickering neon and a bell that didn't ring when I tapped it. An older man finally appeared from the back office. He looked like he'd been woken up from 100 years' sleep. His eyes were cloudy, and he didn't speak a word as he handed me the room key. Room 6. We brought nothing inside except a backpack and the clothes we were wearing. I left my phone in the glove compartment. Lena didn't even ask why. The room smelled like bleach and old smoke. The walls were thin enough to hear the fridge humming next door. I stood in the shower for 15 minutes with the water as hot as it would go, but I still felt cold. When I stepped out, Lena was sitting at the edge of the bed, staring at the turned-off TV. She was pale. Her hands were tucked under her thighs like she was trying to stop them from shaking. I sat beside her. She spoke first. "That thing, that voicemail." "Yeah. You heard it, right?" "I heard it." My voice said something too. I turned to look at her. It said, "It doesn't want us to leave." I wanted to say it didn't make sense, that there was no way her voice or mine could be on that recording. But the truth was, I remembered exactly what mine said too. "You have to go back." The words still echoed like a bad dream, one you wake up from and try to forget, but it follows you all day, hiding in the silences. We slept in shifts that night, or maybe we didn't sleep at all. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard static like it was coming from behind the walls. In the morning, I opened the car. The glove box was open. My phone was lying face up on the passenger seat. It was turned on. No battery warning. No heat from overnight idle. The screen showed a missed call from 6:30 unknown broadcast. Beneath that, a single voicemail. I didn't open it. Not yet. The drive back to Milwaukee should have taken just under 2 hours. We made it in 1.5. I didn't even remember parts of it. It felt like time folded in on itself, the way it does when you're too tired or too scared to measure it properly. The city was a relief. Billboards, traffic, construction, life. We pulled into Lena's apartment complex first. Neither of us said goodbye right away. There was a pause, like we both knew something was waiting to pick back up the moment we separated. "You'll call me?" she asked. I nodded. "Soon as I get home." She stared at me like she didn't believe it, and I didn't blame her. Back at my place, I tried to reset things. Took a shower, opened all the blinds, made coffee, but the phone sat on the kitchen counter like a loaded gun. Eventually, I pressed play. The voicemail was shorter this time. Just a few seconds of static. Then a voice. Not mine. Not Lena's. Something deeper. Slower. A voice like wind through power lines. "They remember you." Then silence. That day I started digging. I searched for AM 630 broadcast history in Wisconsin. Nothing unusual. Mostly old news and agriculture reports. No station identifiers or DJs I recognized. I asked forums, Reddit, obscure radio enthusiast groups. One person responded, a user named Night Watch Relay. They messaged me privately. "You heard it too." I hesitated before replying. Then I typed, AM 630? Wisconsin Backroad? Lullaby? The response was instant. "It's not a station. It's a relay point, a repeater. The signal bounces from place to place, like it's looking. Looking for what? Open ears." I asked if they knew what the music meant, where it came from, if others had heard it. They replied with a link, a video, blurry, low resolution, titled, "The Voice in the White Noise," recorded 1997, Waukesha County. In it, a man sits in a lawn chair behind a garage. He's listening to an old radio. The music starts, same melody, same distorted lullaby. The man's smile fades. He drops the radio and begins muttering. Seconds later, he begins screaming. I closed the laptop and paced the room. Every hair on my arm stood straight. I turned on the radio in my kitchen, the kind nobody uses anymore, dusty and forgotten. Switched to AM. Spun the dial slowly, heartbeat ticking with each number. When I landed on 630, there was nothing but silence. Then softly, a click, and the voice of a child, whispering a nursery rhyme I didn't know, but somehow recognized. I snapped it off. The room was silent again. My phone buzzed. Text from Lena. "Do not answer." Then a second message. "It's not me." I stared at the screen, confused. Then the call came in. Caller ID, Lena. Her profile photo. Her number. The ringtone was not my usual ringtone. It was the same melody from the broadcast, slowed and distorted. I didn't answer. I turned off the phone, yanked the battery out, and threw it into the sink. Water ran cold over it. I stood there, hands on the edge of the counter, and realized I was shaking. When I looked up, the radio light was still on. AM 630. Faintly, barely audible, I heard my voice again. "You have to go back." Part 3. The Voices Between Frequencies. I met Lena the next morning at a public library near the edge of the city. A neutral ground. Bright. Full of people. Safe, at least on the surface. She hadn't said much when I called her from a landline. Just a clipped, "Okay, I'll be there." When she walked in, I barely recognized her. Dark circles. Jittery movements. Her eyes darted to every speaker in the ceiling like they were watching her back. We sat at a corner table far from the AV section. "I'm not crazy," she said before I could speak. I nodded. "Me neither." Her lips twitched. "Not yet anyway." I slid a folder across the table. Inside were printouts, forum threads, archived FCC records, scattered mentions of unregistered relay anomalies dating back to the 90s. Most had been scrubbed or archived by private users. Lena flipped through them slowly. "You did all this last night?" I shrugged. "Didn't sleep much." She tapped one of the articles. A case from 1999 in Kenosha. A man had called police claiming his radio was speaking in his own voice, words he hadn't said. The call ended with him going off-grid. Never found. "There are more," I said. "All around the upper Midwest. Every few years. Same signal. Same frequency. Sometimes people vanish. Sometimes they go mad." "Why doesn't anyone stop it?" she whispered. I hesitated. "Because no one believes it's real. Because it changes locations, frequencies, names." She looked at me. "But it's still the same thing?" I nodded. "I think so." We started digging deeper. Lena, surprisingly, was better at this than I was. She found a paywalled university archive referencing non-local signal propagation anomalies near the Great Lakes. She used her cousin's old login to get in. The paper mentioned a phenomenon known as signal reentry. A theory, certain man-made frequencies under rare atmospheric and electromagnetic conditions could loop, feeding into themselves and creating a resonance that mimicked life, or worse, attracted something from outside regular space-time. One quote stuck out. "The question is not where the signal originates, but who or what is listening." At noon, we took a break and sat on the front steps. I noticed Lena hadn't touched her phone all morning. It wasn't even in her hand. "Where's your phone?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then, it rang again at 4 a.m. I tensed. I answered without thinking. She said, voice low. It said something new. I swallowed. "What?" She looked at me, almost afraid to speak it aloud. It said, "You'll both forget soon." Wrong, like they didn't belong to me anymore. "I don't want to forget," I said. Lena nodded. "Then we can't stop. Not until we know what this is." We agreed on one thing, to find someone who'd lived through it. Not just a story or a forum post. A person. Someone real. That night I found him. Buried in a list of emergency ham radio operators across Wisconsin. A man named Earl Danner, age 71, listed as inactive since 2004. His license had lapsed, but he had once run a public access broadcast near Baraboo. His station was nicknamed The Listening Post. And in a 2002 interview archived in a barely functioning website, he said, "There are frequencies that don't bounce off the ionosphere. They slip through it. They go out or maybe in. One of them is 630. I emailed the address on record. No reply. So Lena and I drove 5 hours north, through winding farm roads and early evening mist. Baraboo was quiet. A town that looked like it had never updated past 1993. We found the address from the ham radio license, an old cabin off a gravel path, overgrown with weeds and ivy. There were no cars in the driveway, no lights on, but there was a faint crackle coming from a tall radio antenna behind the house. Lena looked at me. "If he's dead, I swear." The front door creaked open. Earl Danner was alive. Barely. He looked like a scarecrow made of old bones and frayed jeans, with a beard that could have hidden birds. His eyes were bloodshot and slightly wild, but sharp. "You heard the song," he said before we could speak. "Didn't you?" Lena and I stood frozen. "I can tell," he muttered. "You have the look. You're still ringing? Dreams twitching at the edges?" He turned around. "Come in. But don't touch the radios." His house was lined with old equipment. Radios, switchboards, stacks of labeled tapes. It smelled like solder and sweat and something older, like mildew in a basement. We followed him to a back room with no windows. He flipped on a red light and gestured for us to sit. "Tell me what you've heard," he said. We told him everything. The AM 630 station, the child's voice, the phone calls, the messages in our own voices, and the thing Lena heard, "You'll both forget soon." Earl nodded slowly, like none of this surprised him. "I picked it up in '98, he said. "Late spring. Same station. Same damn song. Started as static, then the voice. It was mine at first, then my brother's, then someone I hadn't heard since childhood." "What is it?" I asked. He lit a cigarette with shaky hands. "I don't know, but I know what it does." He leaned forward. "It hollows you out, little by little. Starts with your sleep, then your memory, then your voice. It wants to wear you." I felt the air thicken around us. Earl continued, voice brittle. "I survived because I stopped listening. Cut the wires, burned the tape, but it didn't stop. Just paused, watched, waited." He pointed at Lena. "And now it's watching you." She whispered, "How do we stop it?" Earl looked at the ceiling as if trying to remember, then said something that made my blood run cold. "You don't. You trace it back, or you lose everything." We left just after midnight. Earl refused to let us stay. "I don't let cursed things sleep under my roof," he said almost gently. As we pulled away, Lena looked back. Earl was standing in the doorway, smoking, framed by radio static leaking from the antenna behind him. "Do you believe him?" she asked. I didn't answer, because my phone had just turned itself on, and was playing the voicemail I never opened. The voice whispered, "2 more nights." Part 4. The Signal Hunt. We didn't drive straight home. Something about Earl's warning, asterisk, trace it back or lose everything, asterisk, was a hook in our skulls. Lena sat beside me, silent, her hand twitching occasionally like she was testing whether she could still feel her own skin. I had printed coordinates that Earl scribbled on a cigarette pack. 45.732 degrees north, 89.214 degrees west. He didn't explain what was there, only said, "That's where I first heard it, before it found me." We drove north. By morning, the cities vanished. The world became woods and broken fences. We passed shuttered gas stations with overgrown pumps and diners that looked like time forgot them. Somewhere past Rhinelander, Lena asked me something strange. "Carter, what's my brother's name?" I glanced over. She was staring straight ahead, like if she turned to me she might fall apart. "You don't have a brother?" I said gently. Her voice cracked. "I did. I know I did. I remember his face, but not his name." We pulled into a motel before dusk, Pine Echoes Lodge, a long row of one-story cabins shaped like triangles, buried in pine trees. The front desk was locked, but the key to cabin 4 sat under a doormat. Inside, the room was dusty but warm. The radio on the nightstand had no power cord, yet its dial glowed faint orange, locked on AM 630. I unplugged the lamp and used its cord to smash the radio open. Nothing inside, just hollow metal, and a cassette tape, labeled "Do Not Play." I burned it in the motel sink. Lena watched in silence. Neither of us commented on the fact that the cassette hissed like it was alive before it caught fire. We were beyond asking those kinds of questions. That night I had my first blackout. One moment I was lying in bed, eyes shut but not asleep. The next I was outside in the freezing dark, standing barefoot in the gravel lot. My phone was in my hand, camera open, recording. There were 5 minutes of footage. Nothing but trees, static, and a soft whisper I couldn't quite decipher. Something about transmission complete. Lena shook me awake around 4 a.m. She was pale and sweating. Her pillow was damp, her fingers twitching. "I can't remember my last name," she whispered. I stared at her. "I wrote it down," she said. "I knew I'd forget. I used a pen, black ink, left-handed, like I always do." She held up a wrinkled receipt from a gas station. It was blank. The ink had bled off the page like it had been erased by something, not water, but time. The next day we reached the coordinates. It wasn't what I expected. No tower, no bunker, no laboratory. Just an old schoolhouse, rotting under the weight of a collapsed roof, wrapped in vines. Its bell tower crumbled like the neck of a broken animal. A sign barely hung on the front gate. Cedar Hollow Public School, closed 1981. Lena stared at it. Why here? I didn't have an answer, but I noticed something. The woods around us were silent. No birds, no bugs, no wind, like the world had been muted. Inside, the school smelled like wet paper and mold. Desks were overturned, blackboards split. Children's shoes lay forgotten in corners like they'd been abandoned in a hurry. We found the principal's office. The door was stuck, swollen by decades of rain. I forced it open with my shoulder. Inside, a desk, a filing cabinet, and something that didn't belong. A radio transmitter, newer than the rest of the building. Wires still ran to the wall, up into the ceiling through rusted conduit. It was tuned to 630 kilohertz, but there was no sound. Not until Lena touched it. Then voices, all at once, layered on top of each other, overlapping like a dozen people whispering into the same microphone. We heard, "You are tuned to the last station. The voice inside is not your own. Repeat after me. Repeat after me. Repeat after." Lena screamed and backed away. The signal cut off. I opened the drawer of the desk. There was a Polaroid photo curled at the edges. 3 children standing in front of a radio tower. 2 boys and a girl. One of them looked like Earl Danner. On the back, July 1963, we heard it first. I took the photo. Suddenly, Lena grabbed my arm. "We need to go." I turned. "What is it?" She looked at me with eyes that weren't entirely hers. "You're not supposed to remember yet." We ran. I don't know why or how, but the air in the building had changed. The walls pressed inward. The floors groaned not like wood but like breathing. Outside, the sky was too dark for 3 p.m. The trees swayed without wind. The car keys were missing. My phone was gone. The woods were full of frequencies. I could feel them pushing against my skull, tasting my thoughts, looking for cracks. We didn't speak again until we reached the next town over. We found a diner. It had real lights, a waitress, soup, but safety. I excused myself to the restroom. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see my face right away. I saw someone else. Same eyes, same haircut, but wrong. The face mouthed something before vanishing. I leaned closer. The mirror whispered, "One night left." I returned to the booth. Lena was gone. Her coat still on the seat. A piece of paper under her coffee mug. In her handwriting, barely legible, one word. "Listen." Part 5. Echo loop. I stayed in the diner until it closed. I checked the parking lot, the alley, the restroom. Lena was gone. I asked the waitress if she'd seen her leave. She frowned, said, "You came in alone." I showed her the coat, the note. She looked at it like it wasn't there. I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded like I believed her and walked outside. It was cold. The wind buzzed like static in my ears. In my pocket, I found something I hadn't put there. A matchbook. Pine Echoes Lodge, Cabin 4. I drove back the way we came. No GPS, no music. I didn't dare turn the radio on. The trees on either side looked the same, like they were copying each other. Mirrored. I passed a dead raccoon in the road. A mile later, I passed it again. Same position, same blood pattern. Something was looping. The fourth time I saw it, I slammed the brakes and got out. The animal was gone, but my phone was sitting in the middle of the road, screen up. No cracks. Battery, 99%. And it was recording. I listened to the last 13 seconds of audio. A voice, Lena's, whispered, "I'm in the walls now. Don't let it wear you." Then silence. I looked around. Nothing moved, but I felt watched. Not from the trees, from the frequency between sounds. I drove faster. By the time I reached Pine Echoes Lodge, the sky was black, though it wasn't yet 8 p.m. Cabin 4's door was wide open. Inside, everything was as we left it, except for the mirror in the bathroom. Words were scrawled across the glass in red marker. "Remember who's driving." And in the sink, a photo. Me and Lena, smiling. But I didn't remember taking it. And the date stamped in the corner was 2026. Next year. I stumbled out of the cabin and retched in the snow. When I looked up, the trees around the motel were blinking, off and on, like they were in sync with something breathing underground. I turned, heart pounding, and saw a figure standing near the edge of the woods. So, watching. It wore my face. I ran. Got in the car, locked the doors, and didn't look back. I drove east, just picked a direction and followed it until my gas light came on. The next town was called Harper's Hill. 1 street, 2 stoplights, a gas station and a post office. I parked near the station and sat there, engine off, heart hammering. I could feel the signal now like a vibration in my molars, buzzing in and out like Morse code I couldn't quite translate. Then my phone lit up. 1 new voicemail. No number, just a name. "Carter, you." I listened. It was my voice, but not my tone, not my rhythm. Like someone using my mouth but unsure how to move it right. "You are not lost. You are overwritten." I dropped the phone. People walked by outside, unaware. I looked at the window and saw myself sitting across the street. Same hoodie, same jacket, watching. A second version of me. Smiled slowly and held up a radio. I screamed and stormed out. The figure was gone. In its place, a folded piece of paper on the sidewalk. I picked it up. It was a transcript, type, labeled AM 6:30 repeater broadcast log number 19 subject, Carter Hill. Lines of dialogue I hadn't said yet. "She's not real anymore. It needs new voices. Let me back in." I shoved it in my pocket and drove without thinking. I was losing time. The next hour blurred. I don't remember turning onto the side road, but suddenly I was back at the Cedar Hollow schoolhouse. Only now it was glowing. Every window lit from inside with a soft, pulsing orange. I stepped out of the car and the snow underfoot didn't crunch. It crackled like speaker feedback. The front door was open. I walked inside. Inside, the building had changed. No desk, no mold. Instead, a clean white corridor lined with speakers, all softly playing that same lullaby. I followed the sound, down the hall, through a door, into a room full of static. Literally, white fog made of moving sound. It shimmered, shifted, hummed in my bones. And in the center, Lena, or what was left of her. She turned slowly. Her eyes flickered like TV screens. Her mouth moved, but the words came out through the speakers in the walls. "You came back. I warned you." I stepped closer. "Lena, what is this?" She blinked slowly. "The signal doesn't hunt. Remembers, it replays, and it corrects." "Corrects what?" "You." The static grew louder. She stepped forward. Her voice cracked with sadness. "You're not the original anymore." I collapsed. Memories began unraveling in reverse. Childhood moments, college nights, first dates, all dissolving like paper in rain. I couldn't remember the color of my bedroom, the sound of my mother's voice. Lena reached out and placed a hand on my chest. It felt cold, but familiar. She whispered, "You have one chance," then handed me a recorder. Analog. Crack. On it, a single button labeled playback. I held it. I looked up. She was gone. The room was gone. I was standing outside, snow falling. The schoolhouse collapsed in front of me, silent, empty. The recorder buzzed faintly in my hand. I pressed play. My own voice spoke from a time I hadn't lived yet. The last signal isn't a broadcast. It's a choice. Part 6. Playback rewritten. The recorder felt heavy in my hand. It shouldn't have been. It was just plastic and tape and static. But it hummed with a weight that didn't belong to this world. A choice, it said. I stared down at the button, playback, and pressed it. There was no sound. Not at first. Then the world bent. The snow around me stopped falling midair. The trees warped into long vertical waveforms, jagged and humming. The sky became a giant dial, turning slowly from left to right like I was tuning the universe itself. And then, I was falling. No, not falling. Streaming. Dragged backward through something thick and electric like a radio frequency made of memory. When I landed, it wasn't on ground. It was in static. A world built from signal, everything grainy, flickering like an old CRT screen. Buildings were outlines. Trees pulsed like broken speakers. The air smelled like burnt circuits. I stood in the middle of a wide street that looked like a glitching version of my neighborhood, except empty. No cars, no people, only radios, hundreds of them. Old tabletop sets, police scanners, clock radios, boomboxes stacked in rows stretching down the block, all tuned to AM 630. I turned in a slow circle. Some of the radios started speaking, whispers, fragments. One said, "You're not supposed to be here." Another, "You've already made this mistake." And a third, "We are what's left of your voice." I kept walking. Each step echoed like a dial being turned. And then I saw him, myself, sitting cross-legged in the middle of the intersection. He looked up, wore the same hoodie, same face, same fear. "Which one are you?" he asked. I blinked. "What?" He stood. "Carter 4, Carter 7, Carter 9. How many times have you hit playback?" I said nothing. He smiled, sadly. "You're new, I can tell. You're still asking questions." I backed away. "What is this place?" He gestured to the radios. "This is where the signal stores us. Not just the sound, the people. Everyone who heard it too long. Everyone who let it speak through them." He pulled a recorder from his pocket. "Same as mine. Playback doesn't rewind," he said. "It forks." He pointed to his own face. "I've tried 8 times. How do I get out?" I asked. His expression hardened. "You don't. You break. You overwrite. Or you go deeper." Behind him, the radios all clicked at once, tuned to something new. A voice. Female. Lena. "Carter," she whispered. "You're close, but you're not you." Carter 8 turned to the radios, panic blooming on his face. No. She wasn't supposed to speak here. She's not allowed to. The signal cut him off. He dissolved, just blinked out like a paused frame deleted mid-reel. In his place, static. I stepped forward and picked up his recorder. Now I had two. One labeled playback, the other record. The sky above shimmered. A tower appeared in the distance. Metal, massive, unreal. Like it had been pulled halfway from a dream and left suspended in signal. I ran toward it. The further I got, the more the world distorted. Houses folding inward, trees warping into antennae, clouds spinning backward. The tower grew taller. At its base, a staircase. I climbed. At the top was a door made of speaker mesh. When I touched it, it opened, not swinging but fading like sound dropping to zero. Inside, a circular chamber filled with dozens of me, all standing still, all blinking in sync. In the center, Lena. She looked right, not broken, not overwritten, not lost. She saw me and ran forward, grabbing my hand. "You're real," she said. "This version is real." I almost believed her. "What is this place?" I asked again. She looked around. The core of the broadcast, where it stores everything it's copied, where it decides which voices to keep. "You mean?" I trailed off, looking at the other Carters. "They're not me?" They were. The others began to move. Their mouths opened. They spoke in unison. "Give us the record." I held the second recorder tighter. It buzzed with heat. "They want to overwrite you," Lena whispered. "You're the newest, the cleanest. They'll use your voice to anchor the loop again." "No," I said. "I'm getting us out." She stared at me longer than she should have, then said, "Then you need to choose which version of me to believe." I blinked. "What?" Behind her, another Lena stepped forward. Identical, but expressionless. She held her own recorder and said, "I gave you the wrong one." The recorders buzzed violently in my hands. One glowed red, one glowed blue. One Lena screamed, "Press playback. You can reset." The other shouted, "Press record. You can overwrite them all." The tower trembled. The walls of the chamber began warping, voices rising, signals swelling. And in that moment I realized something. Both Lenas were telling the truth, and both were lying. I looked at the red glowing recorder, then at the blue. Then I closed my eyes and pressed record. The signal screamed, not in pain, in recognition. The chamber exploded into light. Every version of me, of Lena, every fragment of broadcast shredded into raw data and blown outward like ash. I wasn't falling. I was transmitting. My mind stretched across the dial, pulsing through copper, skipping between frequencies. And somewhere in the real world, a radio turned itself on. A boy in a bedroom heard my voice. "This is not a test. This is the last version. Do not listen past this point." The boy turned the dial. Too late. He heard the lullaby. And somewhere deep inside the circuitry, I whispered to myself, "Now you're me." Part 7. Last frequency. The first time Daniel heard it, he thought it was just a broken speaker. He was working the late shift at the convenience store off Route 46, the one nobody used unless they were desperate or lost. It was close to midnight, and the radio in the break room, an old AM/FM thing from the 80s, had been playing classic rock all night. Then it just changed. No click, no static, no transition. Just a song. Faint, lullaby-like. notes that looped like a child trying to remember the melody from a dream. And underneath it, a voice, whispering something that sounded like, "Don't let them hear your name." Daniel stared at the radio, then unplugged it. The music kept playing. He threw the radio in the dumpster out back. It stopped, but only for a few minutes. Then the speakers built into the store ceiling, normally connected to a dead PA system, crackled to life. Same melody. This time the voice was clearer, and it said, "He made the wrong choice." That night, Daniel didn't go home. He slept in his car with a flashlight clutched to his chest, flipping through every station on his dashboard radio just to hear silence again. But no matter where he tuned, the same thing repeated at 630 kilohertz. This is not a station. This is a door. The next day he told his roommate, Maya. She laughed it off. "Man, you're tired. Or stoned. Or both." He showed her the voicemail. She stopped laughing, because the voice in it was hers. Only she hadn't called him. And what it said made her drop her phone. "You'll forget me by Thursday." By Wednesday, Maya was gone. Not just missing. Erased. Daniel found her toothbrush in the bathroom, her keys, her shoes, but no pictures, no messages, no mutual friends who remembered her, not even her name in his contacts, only a voicemail from a number listed as Shadowed Echo. Daniel's world began to unravel. Lights flickered when he got near electronics. He started seeing people standing still in the corners of his vision, mouths open, whispering static. The sound followed him everywhere, through outlets, through cell towers, through power lines. It was like being haunted by an idea, a signal that didn't just want to be heard, it wanted to become. That's when he found the forum. Buried deep in a web archive from 2003, a user named C.Hill had written, "The signal will pretend to be your memory, then your voice, then your choice, but it was always someone else's. If you hear the lullaby, you are already inside." The thread had one reply, a series of numbers: 45.732 degrees north, 89.214 degrees west. Daniel rented a car, drove north. By the time he reached the coordinates, his phone battery had been stuck at 63% for 6 hours. The sky overhead was gray and glassy, like a blank television screen. He found the collapsed schoolhouse with no trouble. No signs, no birds, just cold, damp silence. Inside it looked like time had stopped, then reversed, then melted. Old desks were arranged in spirals. Blackboards written in looping sentences that bled off the edges. Say it, play it, stay it, say it, play it, stay it. He walked into the principal's office. In the center, a single radio, modern, clean, out of place, tuned of course to AM 630. When he reached for it, the lights overhead snapped on, but there was no electricity. And then he heard the voice. Not through the radio, from the air itself. "Welcome, Daniel. You're the next voice." He backed away. The floor turned to static beneath his feet, grainy, gray warping. And then a man stepped out from the shadows, wearing a hoodie, familiar face, tired eyes. "Who are you?" Daniel asked. The man smiled. "My name used to be Carter." Daniel staggered back. "You're the guy from the forums." Carter nodded. "Sort of. What does that mean?" "It means I'm what's left after the signal recorded over me." He stepped closer. "I thought I could warn the next version, tell them to run. But I can't." "Why not?" "Because there's nowhere left to run." Daniel turned to leave, but the door was gone. In its place, a wall of radios, each one blinking, each one tuned, each one speaking in different voices, all saying the same thing. "Press play. Be heard. Press play." Be heard. Carter held out a recorder, just like the one he used, red light blinking. He looked almost sad. It's always been you, Daniel. You just haven't remembered yet. Daniel shook his head. No, I'm not part of this. But even as he said it, a single memory cracked through his skull like a lightning strike. A lullaby from when he was a child. His mother humming it through the baby monitor. The same melody, always the same. His hands moved before he could stop them. He took the recorder. The button blinked once, then recording. Carter vanished. The radios went silent, and Daniel whispered with someone else's voice, "I'm ready." Part 8. Signal Breaker. The moment Daniel hit record, the radios lit up like stars exploding in reverse. The air changed. Every breath buzzed. He wasn't in the schoolhouse anymore. He was inside something else now. A space shaped like a waveform. Time stuttering like a skipping track. Gravity redefined by memory. And in the center of it all, a tower made of speakers. Each one held a face. Some were people he recognized. Some weren't people at all. Daniel clutched the recorder in both hands. The red light was solid now. No blinking. Just one word on the screen. Confirm. A voice, his own voice, spoke in his ear. This is where we decide. This is where we break. And then another voice layered over it. Harsher. Familiar. Carter. Don't press it. You'll complete the loop. Daniel turned. Carter stood near the base of the speaker tower, flickering like old footage. Less human now. More broadcast. Daniel took a step forward. Why are you still here? Because I pressed it. I pressed it too many times. What happens if I do? You become me. Daniel hesitated. Then what happens if I don't? Carter looked up at the tower and said, then maybe it ends. A third voice joined. Lena. Projected from the speakers, not seen, only felt. You can't destroy a frequency, but you can flood it. The speakers around them buzzed with her presence. Carter looked panicked. Don't listen to her. She's part of the system now. It rewrote her. No, Lena's voice responded, quiet but sharp. I made my choice. Now it's yours. Daniel stared at the recorder. There was a new button below confirm. Faint. Flickering. Jam. He asked the question out loud. What does it do? No one answered, because the signal didn't want him to know. He pressed jam, and the tower screamed. Not in sound, but in silence. All the speaker faces contorted, distorting like melting plastic film. The waveforms flattened. The air around Daniel folded into itself. Then, crushed. Every light in the tower went out. Only one remained, his recorder glowing pale white. On the screen, broadcast broken. Identity restored. Daniel collapsed. Woke up on the floor of the real Cedar Hollow schoolhouse. Daylight streamed through broken boards. There were no radios, no Carter, no Lena, only silence. Beautiful, empty silence. Weeks passed. Daniel returned home. The lullaby didn't follow him. His voicemail was empty. AM 630 played nothing but normal static now. Sometimes he'd tune in, just to make sure. Just to feel that nothingness. It was the purest thing he'd ever known. He wrote about it online, in a forum Carter once used. He posted the full story, the audio logs, the final coordinates. He titled the thread, Dead Air, How I Broke the Signal. People responded. Some believed, some didn't. Most scrolled past it like any other horror post. That was fine. Daniel had done his part. He had broken the chain. Until one night, at 2:03 a.m. Daniel's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He didn't answer. He just stared at the screen. The voicemail transcribed itself before he pressed play, and it said, "We can rebuild from static." Across town, in a different apartment, a teenager lay awake, scrolling through old internet stories. He found Daniel's post. He clicked read, paused at the embedded audio clip labeled "Playback sample, do not open." He pressed it anyway. A lullaby began.
And that was tonight's tale from the Shadowed Tales archive. If it left a mark on your mind, if the silence feels heavier now, then the story did what it was meant to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the darkness. New stories are always on their way. Until then, keep the lights low and the doors locked.